Hey, 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 everybody. How you doing? Welcome to the Tarot Flow Show. Welcome to the Tarot Flow Show, where synchronicity is the star. I'm your host, ALISON Pickering, and I am so very happy today, as usual, to have my wonderful co-host from Stockholm, Sweden. And he is a student of the spiritual arts, and he's always my favorite guy to introduce. Please welcome Kefri Skarabus. Welcome, Kefri. How you doing today?
Thank you, Alison. I'm fine today, actually, and it's fun to be here. Thank you.
It's always fun to have this show going on, and I'm so happy today because we have someone who I have known for a long time but haven't seen her in a while. So when her name popped up on our schedule, I was so happy. And she's very adorable and very talented. And I'm telling you that people in West LA, in West Los Angeles, should be kissing her feet because she has run the life and made the lives easier for so many actors, so many directors, so many talented and wonderful artists to get their managing and their logistics done and done well, to get their funds raised, to get their events run, to do all these wonderful things. And the person who's been doing it for all these years and making their life easy and making it wonderful is the beautiful Jeni Pearsons. Welcome, Jeni Pearsons. Yay!
Hi, thank you. It's wonderful to see you, and it's nice. It's
so
just
nice
great. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you, and I've missed seeing you. We used to see each other quite frequently, and it's been a little while, and so we have some history in common, which gives all three of us some history in common in terms of people that we've learned from, philosophies that we've considered and adhered to and learned about and all that good stuff. And so Jenny's gonna get she's now subjecting herself to the tarot flow, so good on you, and well done. Let's take a quick look. Well, let me ask you this, Jeni. Mysticism, tarot, synchronicity, what is it about those things that intrigues you, or what are some experiences that you've had that you'd like to share?
It's such a big question. You know, I've always been interested in mysticism before I really understood how that was different from just religion.
Mm-hmm.
I had some experiences when I was very young. During my grandparents were Methodist and went to a very traditional, very conservative Sunday school with them. And I always thought that it was that we were getting kind of the baby version of what was really going on in terms of, you know, God and the bigger picture. I thought, oh, well, this is adorable. This is just what they're telling us kids. And then certainly, you know, as I get older, they'll explain like the real situation. And then that part just never came. Like it just stayed the, you know, what felt like a lesson for kids, like a sort of a dumbing down of stories that I thought must have much deeper meanings. And so when I came into learning about Gnosticism and the sort of spiritual mystic side of Carl Jung and his depth psychology, I really felt like, oh, thank heavens, you know, someone is documenting this and writing about it. And so then I've spent like my adult life as a student of that, and you know, to an extent, and have always been then interested in tarot and synchronicity as the, you know, couple in just being a sort of that tangible manifestation, and those, you know, moments where you can go, oh yes, well, here's a moment, and here's something that's just so that's filled with such deep meaning, and this imagery that's so old that still speaks to me in my incredibly modern, not even very exciting life. I still find so much, you know, to read in. So that's really, I suppose, in an overview.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, as always, we have the best guests on this show. It's so much fun to have such wonderful guests. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing today in terms of our little flow. So we've had a chance to very briefly get a sense of what's important to you and how mysticism and symbol has been important to you. And we're going to pick a focus card among the major arcana make some connections, and then we're going to jump into a reading. And as always, and you work with actors, for your consideration, it's always for your consideration. And for those of you who are checking us out here, who would like to consider learning more about tarot, about mysticism, about our events and travel opportunities coming up, our academy coming up, go to ALISONPickering.com, check it out. And in the fall of 2024, we are launching our beautiful academy. And in 2025, we're going to have some travel, all kinds of really cool stuff. So I hope you will join us. And let's talk with Jeni a little bit right now about the main player. We all perhaps are familiar with this guy, but some people are not. And so let me get ourselves out of the way there. Here is the Fool, and his little animal companion, who is representing his body, is saying, no, do not jump. But he, the spirit, she, the spirit, they, the spirit, this is not a person. This is some larger archetype within our psyche, within our realities. They're ready, they're willing to jump, and they are willing to go into this next incarnation. And then just blazingly fast here, Jeni, and with apologies for how fast this is going, but anybody who wants to check out some of our older videos can get a little bit more of an in-depth view. But as we look at this, we're going to see that in the first row, shall we say, and again, vastly oversimplifying, but useful as a frame, think of that first row like the internal capacity and the early education. And so you have the internal masculine and feminine polarities with the magician and high priestess. We each have a mother and a father, biological mother and father, whether we ever met them or interacted with them. We had those creative folks with us, and we got educated into whatever the mores were that we were educated into. And that's that Hierophant. We've had relationships, that Lover's card. We've had mobility, getting outside of what our original familiarity was with that Chariot card. And then we go into this middle row, and that middle row is kind of like, when we become adults, we have to learn the lessons of adulthood. One of our guests, Anne-Marie, called it adulting. This is our adulting row. And so you have to figure out your passions and your emotions with the Strength card, solitude, other people's learning, your own learning, luck, and the Wheel of Fate with that Wheel of Fortune. What about the law of the land, the law within your own ethics? Where do you sit relative to society and relative to what other people's values are? That's the Hangman there. Sometimes, like that pandemic or other things that come through our lives, they just march through and we can't really do anything about it. That's like the Death card. And then we have to reconcile somehow, find our balance, get that test, and figure out what our pathway is with that Temperance card. And then that bottom row we could look at as different kind of states of consciousness. We could be super materialistic and very stuck in the physical world, like that Devil card. Oftentimes, if that's all we're focused on, then some reality might come in and knock our little top off and flip our lid or do something along those lines to give us a reality check. And then we are left kind of naked unto ourselves. What are we now? Who are we? And then we have to figure it out with that emotional moony energy. Then there is some liberation when we connect to source, but it's running us. We don't really control it at that point. And then we have to wake up to some new reality in that Judgment card. And then it's a victory, and it's an ending, and it's a new beginning, and back again to another journey with that Fool character. So those are the 22 major arcana. Jeni, are there any of these or any one particular one of these that we might unpack together just to kind of put our analytical brains to?
I think that the card that sticks out to me right now is the Wheel of Fortune. Is that
let's do it.
That turning, that you're on the top, you're on the bottom, that spinning.
Yes, and where are we now? Yeah,
yeah.
So let's take a look at that Wheel of Fortune, and here we have it showing for us. And again, this is not the reading per se, but it's never coincidental. So there's always stuff to learn from whatever we're unpacking. But we're just basically going to pick this thing apart right now and see how richly illustrated these cards are. We can see all kinds of stuff on this one. Let's look on the outer corners. We can see the clouds. And so there's the idea that these things are of the heavens. There are four figures in each of the in each one in each corner. They all have books, so they're all in a process of learning. And these could represent Ezekiel's vision, and they could also represent the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. So you've got on the bottom left Taurus, bottom right Leo, up is on the left Aquarius, the water bearer, the angelic water bearer, and then on the right you have the eagle, which is the elevated aspect of Scorpio. So you've got scorpion, snake, and eagle in the sign of Scorpio. And then there's all kinds of stuff going on in the middle, which has some alchemical symbols. It has a word, rota. And Kefri, what else can we look at in this Wheel of Fortune, which is talking about fate? It's talking about the ups and downs of life, like you talked about, Jeni. What are the symbols and what they mean, Kefri?
Thank you, Alison. We can also see this wheel like a circle form that is made when we are dripping drops of water in the surface of water. So there is like it's another surface hidden in the rotating of the life wheel, actually. That could be by coincidence or something we are doing, the cause and effect thing, so to speak. And we have also these mysterious 4 letters here for tarot, but we have also the 4 mysterious letters for the tetragrammaton, the secret word in Hebrew for the name of God, probably. That is also in here. And we have 4 elements, as you have been talking about, Alison. And the key number for this is actually 4, but then somebody looks and see, yeah, but it's 1 Sphinx and it's 1 Anubis and it's 1 snake, and that's not 4. No, because there is one more thing here, and that is our self that is rotating around the wheel, and there we have the 4 things there also. And we have also the elements here, the 3 elements of the alchemy, the air for the snake and the fire for the Anubis, and the water for the Sphinx, actually, the mystery and the emotions and so on that could be connected to the Sphinx, and the mysterious sword of the Sphinx also is here. So it's a lot going on in this card, as you were saying, Alison.
So we can see, it's a pile of symbols on this thing, but really it's about the holistic kind of impression or the emotional response that it evokes. And so I wonder, Jeni, when you were looking at the cards and you picked this one, what was it about the kind of gestalt, shall we say, of this Wheel of Fortune card? What called to you about this one?
It's something to me when I look at this card to do with the squareness that's formed. But I think that by the 4, the images around the edge, and I've always had a curiosity about the 3 surrounding the wheel, and hadn't really thought of myself or the person reading, as being that 4th element there. But something about the circle within the square, that like within this more within this centered between these somewhat discernible mystical creatures and influences is something circular and even more mysterious and less able to be defined. You can't even really go to a corner of it and figure it out or take a rest in any one place, because there's a sort of constantly moving circularness to it. And I've never known what the symbols inside the circle are meant to stand for. Some of the other symbols I'm more familiar with, but I wonder if
they are the 3 alchemical elements, actually, the salt, the sulfur, and the salt, the sulfur, and the mercury. So they are there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So that's a little bit of an analytical approach to these. Let's take a quick tour of some of the other imagery that we're going to encounter this. So we have our full, and those were our majors. So that's 22 cards. And now we have 56. So that's more than double the amount of cards. And so we're looking at like more than 2/3 of the cards are these ancestors of the playing cards, that if you go to Vegas and you play poker or something, you've dealt with the clubs on the left, the hearts, which is the cups equivalent here, the spades, which is our swords, and then the diamonds, which are these pentacles. If we take a look at these, and if we imagine the wands at the top, and then the cups, and then the swords, and then the pentacles, we're going to be tracing, let's say, the evolution of an idea. And with the wands, the idea starts somewhere in that sparky, intuitive place that we can't reach. We can respond, and we can sometimes feel it, but we can't create our ideas. We receive our ideas in a large way. And that's the realm of the wands. That's the realm of fire. Our fiery knight there is often running. He's got lots of fiery symbols. And then if that idea is going to move anywhere outside of the idea phase, you're going to have to care about it enough to do something about it. And so that care is that emotional investment that's represented by the cups. And then you can see on the bottom, when we look at our Knight of Cups, that sense of ceremony and care and quest and wateriness that is, and also that mercurial wings that are a part of that Knight of Cups. And then if that thing that we care about is going to make it into reality, we're going to have to probably lay it out and plan it out and start getting kind of analytical and sequence things and start to really make a plan. And that's the swords, that intellectual function, the rational function. And you can see that's the realm of ideas and communication. And that knight is like off and running. And the horse is like, where are we going? And let's hope it's the right direction. And then fine. So that's the idea. So it's easy to talk, but then you got to put it into action or put it into the flesh. And so in the world of the flesh is that world of the pentacles. Why the 5-pointed star? Because we deal with the world of the flesh, through our five senses. That's our currency, shall we say, our coin. Our currency in this world is our five senses. And then we have those mental and emotional and ideation functions that are represented in the other suits. And notice that this coin suit, or the pentacle suit, the pentagram on the pentacle, our knight down below, his horse isn't moving at all. He's totally slow because this earth plane is pretty slow. Everything has to play out in time. That's our medium. So our currency is our senses, and the medium is time. And you can see that he's got this plowed field that he has to guard so the birds don't come all eat the seed. It's a question of biding time to make sure that things come to fruition. There's that idea of cycles and of birth and of germination and harvest and all that kind of stuff that is a part of the pentacles. And as we begin to look now, and I'm just going to take us off for a moment here, just to look at our slide here. When we look at the wands, we can see 1 through 10. And then the court cards that are just full of all kinds of fire symbols with flames and salamanders and lions and sunflowers and deserts. And then the 1 through 10, notice that 9 and 10, if we had to carry all of our ideas, it would be a pretty heavy load, And so that's interesting to consider. But some suits, like if we look at our cups, which is that watery suit of emotion and feeling, we can kind of see emotional relationships being traced here. If we had all our wishes come true in that 9 and 10, then that's a little bit of a happier state. And then we can see all these watery symbols in the court cards. We have lotuses and fish and shells and dolphins, ships, all kinds of watery symbols there. And then we get into this kind of colder suit of the air, thought, intellect, and planning, which is the swords. And we can see in the swords here that this is the realm of ideas, and our ideas can really, really make us regret. We can really kill ourselves with the way we talk to ourselves, for example. So it's important to take care in how we think. It's important for us to control our thoughts so that we are not unintentionally or even intentionally wounding ourselves or others with the power of what they convey. And you'll notice all the air symbols in the court cards here, with the wind and the birds and the butterflies and the clouds and the sense of this movement of air. this invisible medium. And then we warm it up a bit here in the suit of the earth with, you can see progressions of, let's say, family relationships or businesses here. And then in the court cards, and this is another one that's very happy in its fulfillment in the 9 and 10, lots of material fulfillment, and then lots of symbols of fertility and earth and earthiness in those court cards. So that's our kind of visual vocabulary as we move now into our reading that we're going to be doing. What questions might you have at this point, if any?
I know. I guess right now my question is sort of swirling around making a life decision about like a next stage of life decision. I have been kind of doing the same thing, the same job, the same living area for quite a long time, and I feel a sense of wanting, to just do something else. And I'm really not sure, like, if I, like with the cards as you were just describing them, like, am I bringing myself into this 9 or 10 of swords situation, where I'm having these like ideas that are just too much, or am I feeling like a valid, not valid, but is this a good impetus, or am I antsy because the modern world has too much stimulation and I'm just, antsy because I have too much stimulation, and I really don't know.
Well, there are worse things to take into a reading than a question like that. So I think that sounds great. I'm going to go off camera for a second now because Kefri is going to go ahead and shuffle and pull your cards, and then he's going to coach you through that phase. Okay. And just so people know, in terms of the reading, we looked at this earlier with Jeni, but we're going to look at this issue here. And so that's kind of where we're going to focus, perhaps, this idea of what now. And then there's a timeline on the bottom. So then we can trace, perhaps that is going to be centered in the now, or it may be, and we've seen this in a number of readings, we look at something significant that is still resonant now, but we're tracing kind of its timeline. And then we're going to get some perspective on it, plus some advice. Top left, watch out, be a little cautious about this one. And then the top right, it would probably be more supportive to go in that direction. And then we'll pull our 7th card afterwards to get a little perspective. So thank you so much. I'll be back after you guys pull the cards. I'm going to put up our little interface and let you guys go to town.
Thank you.
Thank you, ALISON. And I am shuffling the deck, Jeni, so you can say stop where you want to stop to be.
Stop.
There. And do we want to cut the deck, and how many times do we want to cut it?
3 times.
3 times. Thank you. First, the second, and the third cut. There we go. And we begin with the subject card in the middle top row, and it is the Temperance. And we go on with the past card, and it is the Queen of Swords. And the present card is the 10 of Wands. And the future card is the 5 of Wands. And the cautionary card, what not to do, perhaps, is the Moon card. And last but not least, and we should have the 5 of Wands here also, sorry. There we are. And last but not least, the advice card, what is good to do, is the Hierophant card. So there we have it. And ALISON will come back and do the first reading.
Is the moon is the caution, or the Hierophant is the caution? The moon is the caution?
The moon is the cautionary card, and the Hierophant is the advice card. What is good to do?
So before you get too deep into the Hebrew letter decoding process, which is what we're going to see Jeffrey be doing in the background here, I'm going to make him do double duty. Would you mind putting up that temperance card, please?
Yeah, I will. There we are.
So this isn't the perspective card at the moment. We're just going to leave this there, just focus on it for a moment here. So where you are now is a pretty balanced place. You've been able to learn a lot here. You've been able to accomplish a lot of things, and you are recognized for being the level head that you are, for being able to handle the crazies and keep everybody kind of in balance, I would say. And you yourself are not too subject to going OFFT, as they say, you know. You're able to kind of handle all the personalities in such a way and with grace. I would say this hasn't been an easy thing to learn as we look down at that 10, but let's go ahead and I'm going to just speak a little bit more to this temperance card. It hasn't been easy for you to do this. It has involved a lot of testing, but you've passed all those tests and you've come out really shining like a star. And so even though you're behind the scenes, you really are quite the star in that milieu. And in that way, perhaps it's a satisfying thing to be, rather than moving around a lot, to be able to anchor yourself somewhere and to be playing such an important role for an important organization and for people who are meaningful to you and who need someone sane to keep them sane. I would say I'm not trying to denigrate people, but it's important in any kind of arts profession to have people who have a lot of balance and psychological maturity to be able to handle a lot of the drama, you know, because you're in a dramatic field. And so there's a lot of tendency to drama just to start with. And so someone who can handle it with grace is a treasure indeed. And so that you have been. Let's take a look at the Queen of Swords, Kefri.
Yeah.
So as we look at, and I'm not sure if this is anchored in the present time, you can probably tell us better, or if we're looking at a process that you're kind of on the tail end of now. But the idea is that it's worked out so that now you can kind of be the boss, and you can what you say goes. They trust you enough to let you do it the way you need to do it. This puts a lot on you because it means that it's all on you. You know, it's a lot to handle. And so on the one hand, you've handled it and you've handled it with a lot of grace. On the other hand, you mentioned some other work, and I wonder if this is also connected to the idea of your being able to independently carry your skill set to do to use it in other contexts and to broaden then your expertise to these other areas. And I don't know how other people see that work as a side thing, if they see it as a threat, but it doesn't matter because it's your decision. And you need to do what's good for you. And that's been with the butterflies in the crown. I think that you're also starting to recognize that the skill set that you have that was very particular for a specific institution, those skills are now applicable to a really large number of organizations. And so maybe it gives you a sense of your own possibility that you hadn't recognized before. And it's important for you to recognize how powerful you could be to any number of organizations, not just the one that you have been dedicating yourself to so kindly and so redundant, so dedicatedly, so intentionally, and so faithfully over quite a lot of years. And they're lucky to have had such a constant person. Looking at the 10, Kefri, if you don't mind putting up that 10.
Yeah.
Looking at the 10 of Wands, this could represent how hard it has been. So I can imagine that if you're an arts organization, you're working hard for not a lot of money. That's generally how those things work. And because you're supposed to get the joy from the arts and be glad of it, and so and you're like, it's not less, But that's a drag because, you're in LA, it's expensive to live in LA, there's inflation, there's all these things. And so now you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And you've taken on a lot and maybe you've even promised, it's possible that you've even promised some future projects that now you're wondering, oh my God, why did I promise that? Because maybe I want to do something else. And now I've said I'm going to do something that and so there's this idea that you're, it's leading you at this point, but that's where your values have been. And you've been okay with that until I think recently. And recently now is that instead of being constantly willing to shoulder it all yourself, you're getting more into a sense of other possibilities. And so it's kind of like you've taken this job as far as you can. And before you get into another cycle, like what would be the page or something in the next phase of this, you're kind of backing up and saying, okay, wait a minute. I don't really know if I want to do this for the next 10 years or the next 5 years, And so as you begin to think of that, let's take a look at that 5, Kefri.
Yeah.
And so after recognizing that you've been carrying this heavy burden for quite a long time, underpaid, overworked, satisfied and appreciated, but still, it can take you so far. Now it's kind of, you're trying to figure out what's next, and it doesn't feel too balanced yet, although it is kind of a pentagram getting formed there. And this isn't a fight to the death. So this is different from that 5 of Swords where there's like serious winners and serious losers. This is more like perhaps you and your husband, or you and some coworkers, maybe you're partnered up with somebody who you might work with and saying, what else could we do? Well, what about this? What about that? It's kind of like a brainstorming phase. And so if this hasn't happened already, then I would encourage you to just start like putting out some big pieces of paper and really just start listing all of your assets, all of your skills, all of the stuff that you've done. Who have you worked for? Who are these people? And you're going to start seeing some common threads, and it's going to help you start to formulate. And again, we're looking at a 5, and you'll notice that the Hierophant is also a 5, and you'll notice that we get all these majors across the top. So this is not a small thing that you're going through. This, I'm not going to call it a crisis, but I'm going to call it a transitional, liminal consideration of your future as you look forward, because you could still keep doing what you're doing, and you could probably still even keep getting better at it. But I don't know how satisfying it would be, because it's going to represent some repetition, whereas you might need some novelty. But on the other hand, you pointed out that novelty is overrated oftentimes, because the novelty really comes from within rather than from without. And so is it just an attitude adjustment that's needed? I don't know. But it's worth considering that as well. So as you consider all of the things that you are considering, put a category for emotional satisfaction, put a category for confidence or peace of mind or proximity and familiarity, because all those things have value. As you list all the various aspects of what you have been doing, what you're able to do in your own skill set, and as you're looking forward to whatever you might apply this skill set to as you move into your future, do include the feeling tone things that are truly important, like that you could stop working at a certain time reliably, something along those lines, or that you wouldn't have to be on call 24/7, or that, there might be things that you want to include in there as some kind of boundaries for you that aren't really a skill per se, and they're not really a history, but they are, let's say they're going to be your new requirements or your new criteria, something along those lines. And just really, I would really start laying it all out on paper, and just a real big brain dump over time, like a week or two of a brain dump on a big giant piece of butcher paper, or maybe you have something like Freestyle or some kind of an app, but I like paper. Or a whiteboard, something like that, but you got to be careful somebody doesn't come in and erase it. But something where you could maybe even fold it up and look at it later and see how did, if 6 months from now you look at it and you're like, okay, well, we really moved a lot, just having done this process. So I think it would be helpful to really just start banging out what's important to you and what ideas you have, and don't require them to make sense at the moment. And then I would also avoid, and let's look at that moon card right now, please, Kefri. Avoid self-criticism, avoid pessimism, avoid, oh my God, how could I have not done the, all those kinds of, avoid the kind of self-questioning, excuse me, and emotional insecurity that isn't helpful at all, because all it does is it makes you feel less than, and you are in no way, shape, or form less than anyone, period. The decisions you've made, the salary you've chosen or accepted, because that's what was available to do this kind of work, to develop your skills and all that kind of stuff, is completely disconnected with your worth. Who you are and what you're worth is something that you're going to need to really cultivate in your own mind before you get out there on the market. This is the work you want to do, is to get yourself really brainwashed in a good way as to your own high value. And so that's a lot of what the Hierophant card is. So let's take a look at that Hierophant card. So avoid the emotionality and this feeling like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh my God, the market is terrible. Oh my God, all the arts jobs are taken, or, any kind of, that kind of drama. Leave it to the actors. Okay. You said, don't call me an actor. Okay. Leave it to the actors to suffer all of that. You do not need to suffer it. And in fact, you need to exit from that. You need to keep the job you have, in my opinion, because that's not under threat at the moment. I don't have that impression. And really begin to cultivate a self-identity of expertise, because I could see you being a consultant nationwide to theaters. I could see you going and whipping places into shape. I could see you walking into a theater in Kansas City for like a weekend and just pulling them together and really showing them all the different ways where they could monetize, ways where they could become more efficient, ways where they could do some events. You could maybe offer to do a fundraiser for them for a cut of the money at some future date if they would do X, Y, and Z. If they jump through these hoops for you, you could say that you could guarantee them a fundraiser of blah, 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 or something along those lines. You're going to come in as the fixer, is my impression. And you could do this even as you do the other thing, or maybe you could arrange to half-time it where you currently are so that you could train a successor as you develop this other aspect of a business. But I really, really want you to see yourself as an expert and as a savior for these companies, because you've managed to keep this theater company alive and kicking and ticking and all that good stuff for all this time. That is not nothing. People would love to be able to know how to do that. And so, and then outside of theater, just the fundraising and just the event kind of thing. Event coordination is massive. If you want to get into weddings, God forbid, but something along those lines. I say that for my own point, just because of all the personalities, but if you're used to dealing with personalities, then that might be just a snap of a finger compared to the actors. One Bridezilla might be worth, I don't know, a month's worth of work at the Playhouse, so you might be able to really reduce your amount of work time by seeing yourself as an expert consultant and pricing yourself accordingly to be able to bring people the knowledge that they need. And it sounds mercenary, and let it be so, because there is nothing wrong with being a high value person. And in fact, if you see yourself as a high value person, others will as well. But if you see yourself as less than, so will they. And they'll treat you that way. And that's the moon. So if you're like, oh, poor little me, I'm nothing. I've just been doing this all these years. I've been doing the same thing for 25 years. I don't do, and you're just, constrict. That's not going to open your flow. What you need to do to open your flow is to say, I know what's going to help you. Kneel before me and listen to me, and I will tell you what to do. And they'll say, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is what I'm seeing in this for you as a career reading. As a spiritual reading, we could say the same thing. There's nothing in the world that tells you that you have to worry about your pathway or be concerned that somehow by what you're doing, this is not a conscious pathway. You are on a conscious pathway, my dear. And you should see yourself as the balanced and wise person that you are, and put on the red robe and allow people to thank you for what you're going to teach them. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going to go off camera and let Kefri talk to you for a minute.
Thank you. I have been looking at those cards and looking at it a bit deeper, perhaps. The Temperance card for me is indicating a sort of a testing period that you are going through for the moment, and it's a testing period that is a period of searching for light or understanding light to be able to take it in, I would say. And in the past, it's like you have been knowing what to do in different situations, and you also have been feeling that you have had a sort of a support from a divine power source or something, and that has always been there. But lately it has been very difficult to focus on that and to hold it, because it's like the foundation for it, or how I should express it, is splitting apart in several different thoughts or several different ideas or something. And that could also be your willingness to do something else, and then you see that the situation by that also is changed, so you don't get the same supportive higher energy in anymore, if I would say it like that. And that is connected to the Temperance card, because if you look at the Temperance card here, that lady of balance, because that is a lady of balance, of temperance, she holds those two cups in different hands, and she pours something between them, and it looks like water, but it could be light she is pouring between those two cups actually. And it's like they are the two end point of the scale, so to speak, the polarization points. And in between you have the scale there. And it's up to you also not to be caught up in one of the polarization points, but to take your space on the scale in the middle somewhere where you feel that a balance is. And that is where you are going to reminding or stay, so to speak, and stay put there to feel how you develop on that spot actually. And you also can see that she has a triangle on her breast, like she is a sort of an ascension out of balance, we can call it. And that is a bit what I think you should look for actually, the balance to be able to ascend in knowing that you are in a balance actually. And that is a testing moment, that card actually. And it is connected to the 10 of Wands there, that is the losing the foundation or not being able to hold on to the foundation. And if we go to this one, we can see that this group of people or figures are trying to build something, and probably that would result in a pentagram, because they are a good way to do that. And that is, of course, the energy of here and now, and taking down the divine energy and power to your reality. And that will come actually after a strugglesome period, because that will bring you back to the safety of the Queen of Swords, I would say. But there is something new here for you, because it's a higher energy that is developing through this actually, and that has to do with the test of temperance actually. And the moon card for me in that cautionary don't do this spot is like, don't go into your earlier traumas or limiting thoughts, or focusing on situations that things have perhaps not gone so good as you wanted them to go. Don't focus on that situation. Instead, use your faith and your interest in different spiritual techniques or disciplines. And I think we have the Gnosticism here also actually, and that is, and also in this, as ALISON has been into, you can also grow into that initiator that is showing in this card, and you can do that by doing it in your reality, so to speak. And that is connected to the 5 of wands there, like doing it here and now, but doing it with a higher spiritual energy. And that is the key to the solution what you are searching for actually, I think. And when you are getting out of this temperance test here, you can see that in the end of the way we have a crown and we have a very light spot, and that is where you are heading actually. But this balancing things needs to be there to be able to take in the energy and do the ascension, if we call it like that. And there are 3 major arcana cards in this reading: the Temperance, the Moon, and the Hierophant. And each of the major arcana cards are connected to a Hebrew letter. And you can put them together and get words, of course, and it gets very interesting. And I have done that, and I have actually looked at all the possibilities how you can make words with this. But usually we only look at if we're going from up to down or down to up, so to speak, how we are placing the cards. And if we are going from down, that I am reading like what is coming down to you from a spiritual space, so to speak. And there we have the word to start to, or to begin to. So that is a sign, as I see it, that it's time to start to developing this new thing you want to do, and it starts to beginning to do it. And the upward is quite interesting, because the word is wax, but we can also see what does that really mean if we put it in a biblical meaning. And that means to grow, to become, and to advance, to find a treasure in heaven. And there we have the connection to that Hierophant card, I believe, with your faith, so to speak, that you have the solution in your faith. You will find the answer and the balance by going back to your believing actually. And there is also another deeper meaning for that world, and that is the need for spiritual pliability, the desire for moving away from rigidity. And that perhaps is also the freedom you must allow yourself to have in this thing. And I have also looked at the other words that can be created by those three letters, but some of them are very cryptical, so I have not had time to look at those, but I have looked at those that are clear to me, and one of them is market. And you should find a new market for your ability to serve and to serve that market. And the other word is sack. And I think that you have it in your bag already, all your tools to go out in this market, so to speak. And by that, we are going to look at the seventh card here, very interesting. And it's actually the Three of Swords, which makes it very interesting, because that is usually a very sorrowful card, but I don't think it is in this constellation. But Alison, you can take it first.
Would you mind putting up the two of? Yeah. Go ahead, Jeni.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, interestingly, this morning when I was on my morning walk, I found a 3 of diamonds.
Oh, wow.
Just oddly. And I picked it up and put it in my pocket, and I sort of thought, why am I picking up stuff off the ground? But then I thought, no, I need to know what this card is. There's a card in front of me.
Well, I think so. Let's put up the Two of Swords real quick.
Yeah.
And then 3. So in tarot, when the ones, the aces are like the seed. It's not the begun yet, but it's the idea. The 2 is the beginning. And then the 3 is kind of once begun. And so with the 2 here, that's kind of the beginning. It's like, well, what do we do now? If we move to so this is a place where you might be now in terms of, I don't know what I want to do. I can't really make a decision. I don't really want to make a decision. It's kind of comfortable now. It's a little emotional now. I'm kind of moony now, that kind of stuff. And so, but that wasn't the card that got pulled here. The card that got pulled was the 3, which is the next one. And so to move from that kind of stasis to the next phase of development requires making a choice. And it requires, if from 2 to 3, it requires that one has to go. If you're holding 2 things in balance and you have to make a decision, then one has to go, and that's difficult. And so the 3 kind of represents the difficulty of making a decision, or just the nature of making a decision involves eliminating another choice. It's just the way it is. And so that process involves cutting away something else. And so perhaps it's not attractive to cut away this other thing yet, or at least you can understand the hesitation is legit, because there is goes with any decision. And so in that way, this 3 can represent that it's time to begin to make that move and to process the feelings that are inherent there. And that is a certain amount of testing. But I think that it will be eased by resisting the temptation to get dramatic, just knowing that this is going to be a difficult thing. Don't add to it by magnifying it with more magnification than it needs. It can be fairly cut and dry. And you can recognize that it may hurt a little bit, but you don't have to magnify the hurt into something cosmic when it may just be the sweet sorrow of parting that is going to happen at any point when you part with someone, and is part and parcel of any separation or of any decision-making process. You don't have to over-dramatize what's just part of it there. But you can address it wisely, which is that Hierophant figure saying that you can approach it with some foreknowledge of what it's going to involve, as well as, and that 5 is a nice parallel with the 5 down below. I I think that the Hierophant will give you a kind of philosophical viewpoint on the difficulty of making the decision. And it may also give you a sense of authority, so that as you deliver the news to those who are going to be very disappointed to see you go, or see you go half-time, or whatever it is that you might need to decide to do because you are in a position to decide it, that you are announcing to them what you have decided, rather than asking for permission or asking what their opinions are, or what do they think if you thought of doing this. It's not about that. So there's, it's a funky video on YouTube, but it's this woman, and she's got a thing that says, decidedly because changes what was. And it's a weird mnemonic, and I don't love it, but the idea is that you can decide, and you can tell them why, and you can tell them how hard it was, or whatever the adverb is that describes what it was that you had to difficultly do to get to this decision, or whatever, but it's your decision to make. And by articulating it in that way, it's made. And you claim your authority, and you are the authority, and you're delivering this difficult news, but you're doing it with thought for the timeline, with thought for the implications, with preparation for what it might involve. And you come at it as the expert you are to shepherd this period of transition, should you care to do that. But whatever it is that you decide to do, announce it from a position of authority, not from a position of that everybody has a voice in what you end up doing. That is not true. Everybody does not have a voice in your decision-making. You have a voice in your decision-making. And they may have opinions, but everybody's got opinions, you know what I mean? As they say, okay? So the Hierophant is really there to guide you. And the Three of Swords there is perhaps just describing this phase that you are in, where you're recognizing the need to make some kind of a move, and yet considering, do you really have the right to do it? Yes, you have the right to do whatever you want to do. What do you want to do is really the question, and that want needs to be defined in this brainstorming process and in this process. But whatever you want, you have the right to stand in your authority.
I see this card. I see it as very positive in this case, actually, and it's connected to the Temperance and the polarizing there, but it's something more also, because you can see that all the three swords are penetrating the heart and make a balancing point, and that is exactly the same balancing point as the Temperance card is leading to, if we are looking at it kabbalistically in the Tree of Life, so to speak. It's a place of balancing, and this is a place of balancing for formation. And it's also make a sort of an instant stand here, you can see, for the heart, and a very hard way to do a heart stand, so to speak, because you are crushing the heart, actually. And I am getting a feeling here now that could you work with older women actors that want to stay in the business but don't know how they should do it, actually, because this card is connected to a female spot, a female energy, actually, and also connecting it to the word we had here before, the sack, and that could also be that you have a bag with tools that you can coach these type of actors to find new energy to stay in the game, so to speak, and draw out those swords from the heart. That's an instant intuition that came to me some seconds ago.
A whole new kind of fundraising.
Yeah, something.
So this is the tarot flow. This is the kind of thing we do to entertain ourselves and others.
Yeah,
I
this
hope
is
it's
really wonderful. I appreciate this so much, and it's so much to think about. It really feels connected to, you know, my own thoughts. I love both of your different interpretations. I love, especially, I don't know as much about the the Hebrew letters and the words that were created. So I especially enjoyed, learning about that and having that bit to chew on. And I mean, this is just going to be with me for quite some time. You're more than welcome to post it. I think it's wonderful, and I hope that people are interested in doing this, because it really is a wonderful moment to take, for yourself to look through this bit of synchronicity and both of your really adept and very different styles of interpretation. Just what a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And you probably picked up on this, but I kind of do the more worldly kind of pentacles kind of thing. And then the psychology. And then Jeffrey will kind of pick up on the psychology and take it up into the spiritual level. And in that way, we're modeling kind of a Kabbalistic thing of going through the different worlds and showing how a pattern might manifest itself in the physical, in the mental, in the emotional, in the, kind of idea realm. And so that's it's all part of what we're trying to model and give people the experience of and all of that. So you're more than welcome to come on back, and we'd love to hear what your progress is in a couple of months or something.
I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
So Jeni, thank you so much for joining us today. In terms of your own life and in terms of your own spiritual development, if you were to, so for those people, and if you're still here, you have a wonderful attention span, I must say. So what, Jeni, or the words of wisdom that you would share with anybody watching that you have gleaned from your very serious spiritual study over the years?
Oh gosh,
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
It's a really big question.
Wisdom,
Yeah, I think go ahead and pursue it. As the further that I get through and into life, we're only going forward. That it is what it is, and the deepest and most interesting questions will always be the deepest and most interesting questions, whatever state the more pentacle realm of your life takes. I think that it's only, I think it's enriching, if not, the most important thing at every moment. It's always an enrichment. It's always a point of enrichment, and it's the best perspective, I think, from which to look at life, which is just so confusing and strange. That it makes wonderful something that can sometimes feel just so weird.
It's wonderful what can feel so weird, which is life itself. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Jeffrey, we have the world's best guest on the show, don't we?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we really do. So Miss Jeni, I just want to thank you so much for being here today. And as I take us out with our little music, I hope that you will recommend us to your friends, and I'll let you know when this is streaming. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.